She was alone on the last bus home when the billionaire saw his late daughter's teddy bear in her backpack, and he froze. The pre-dawn air in Chicago had that suffocating quality that comes just before the city wakes up. Thick, humid, pressing down on everything like a wet blanket. Madison Crowell dragged herself through the automatic doors of St. Michael's Public Hospital, her scrubs sticking to her skin, her feet screaming inside her worn-out sneakers. 16 hours, 16 goddamn hours of blood, sweat, and watching people either cling to life or let it slip through their fingers. She was 24, but some nights like this, she felt ancient. The bus stop was a block away, and Madison moved toward it like a zombie, one foot in front of the other, autopilot engaged. Her backpack hung off one shoulder, ratty and faded, held together by sheer stubbornness and a safety pin. Inside, next to her empty water bottle and a granola bar wrapper, sat her most precious possession, Señor Osito, the little brown teddy bear with the frayed blue tie. She didn't know where he came from, didn't remember a time without him. Martha, her mother, had always been vague about it. "You've had that thing since you were little," she'd say, waving her hand dismissively, like the details didn't matter. And maybe they didn't. All Madison knew was that when the world felt too heavy, when the loneliness got too loud, Señor Osito was there. Ridiculous, maybe, for a grown woman to carry around a stuffed animal. But Madison had learned a long time ago to stop apologizing for the things that kept her sane. The bus pulled up with a hiss of brakes and a groan of old machinery. The last bus of the night, or the first of the morning, depending on how you looked at it. Madison climbed aboard, nodded at the driver, and collapsed into a seat near the back. The bus was mostly empty. A couple of night shift workers, a guy passed out against the window, someone muttering to themselves in the very back row. Madison let her head fall back against the seat and closed her eyes. Just 20 minutes, and she'd be home. She could sleep for 5 hours, wake up, and do it all over again. She didn't hear him get on. Jonathan Halloway had not been on a public bus in 23 years. The last time, God, he barely remembered it, had been in college. Some ridiculous late-night trip back to campus after a party. He'd been drunk, carefree, stupid. Now, at 52, he was none of those things. He was sharp, controlled, a man who'd built an empire in commercial real estate through sheer will and ruthless efficiency. A man who moved through the world in black town cars with drivers who knew better than to make small talk. But tonight, this godforsaken night, his driver, Marcus, had clutched his chest halfway through the route and collapsed over the steering wheel. Heart attack. Massive one. From the looks of it, the paramedics had loaded him into an ambulance, and Jonathan had been left standing on a street corner at 4:37 a.m., watching the taillights disappear. He had a meeting in 40 minutes, a meeting that would determine whether his company survived the financial shitstorm of the past 6 months. He couldn't afford to miss it. So when he saw the bus approaching, he'd done something he never thought he'd do again. He got on. The driver gave him a look, a quick up and down, taking in the tailored suit, the Italian leather shoes, the Rolex that probably cost more than the bus itself. Jonathan ignored it, paid the fare with a $20 bill because of course he didn't have singles, and moved stiffly down the aisle. He sat down near the middle, his spine rigid, his hands folded in his lap. The seat was cracked, the floor sticky. It smelled like disinfectant and desperation. Jonathan stared straight ahead, trying not to think about how far he'd fallen. Not financially, but here, in this moment, sitting on a public bus like some... And then he saw it. At first, it didn't register. His eyes passed over it, just another detail in a sea of details. But then his brain caught up, and everything inside him went cold. The backpack, hanging off the shoulder of the young woman 2 rows ahead, and dangling from the side pocket, barely visible but unmistakable. A teddy bear. Brown, small, with a blue tie. Not just any blue tie. That blue tie. Jonathan's hands started to shake. He gripped the edge of the seat in front of him, his knuckles going white. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears, drowning out the rattle of the bus. The hum of the engine. Everything. The tie was frayed in a specific way, the edges unraveling on the left side. And there, on the bear's left shoulder, a patch, a hand-sewn patch, slightly crooked. made from a piece of floral fabric. The eyes were mismatched buttons. One black, one dark blue, because they'd run out of matching ones and Evelyn had laughed, saying it gave him character. Señor Osito, their Señor Osito, the bear he'd made with Evelyn on a quiet Sunday afternoon, before Amelia was born. The bear that Amelia had dragged everywhere, that she'd refused to sleep without, that had disappeared with her 20 years ago from Lincoln Park. The bear that no one knew about except him, the police, and whoever had taken his daughter. Because that detail, the fact that the kidnapper had taken Señor Osito, had never been released to the public. The police had kept it quiet, a detail to weed out false leads, attention seekers, the sickos who confessed to crimes they didn't commit. Only 3 people in the world knew that Bear had vanished with Amelia: Jonathan Halloway, the Chicago Pede, and the person who took her. The bus jolted, snapping him back to reality. The young woman shifted in her seat, and Jonathan got a better look at her. Mid-20s, exhausted, dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Scrubs. She worked in a hospital, maybe. She looked ordinary, tired, human. She looked nothing like Amelia. But then again, Amelia had been 4 years old. 20 years could change everything. Jonathan's mind was racing, spiraling, trying to make sense of the impossible. How did this woman have that bear? How? Was she connected to the kidnapping? Was she the kidnapper? No. She was too young. She would have been a child herself. Was she related to whoever took Amelia? Did she buy it at a thrift store? Some sick coincidence. But no. The patches, the buttons, the specific wear patterns. This wasn't a replica. This was the bear. His bear. Amelia's bear. Jonathan stood up, his legs unsteady. The bus swayed, and he grabbed the pole to steady himself. The woman, Madison, though he didn't know her name yet, was leaning against the window, eyes closed, completely oblivious. He moved closer, his breath coming in short, shallow gasps. His mind was screaming at him to be rational, to think this through. But 20 years of grief and rage and desperate hope were bulldozing through every rational thought. He reached her row and stopped. Up close, he could see the bear more clearly. The blue tie, definitely frayed on the left. The patch, the mismatched buttons, even the little sewn-on nose, done in brown thread by Evelyn's careful hands. "Excuse me," Jonathan said, his voice coming out strangled, barely above a whisper. The woman's eyes fluttered open. She looked at him, confused, still half asleep. "That bear," Jonathan said, and his voice cracked. He pointed at the backpack, at Señor Osito. "Where did you get that bear?" Madison blinked, sitting up straighter. "I'm sorry, what?" "That bear, the one on your backpack. Where did you get it?" Jonathan's hands were trembling now, and he couldn't stop them. He couldn't stop any of this. Madison looked at him like he'd lost his mind, and maybe he had. It's mine." "Why, it can't be yours," Jonathan said, and he heard the desperation bleeding through. "That bear, that specific bear, was taken 20 years ago. It was taken with my daughter." Madison's face shifted from confusion to alarm. "What are you talking about?" "My daughter, Amelia. She was 4 years old. She was kidnapped from Lincoln Park 20 years ago. And that bear, that exact bear, was taken with her. And the only people who know that detail are me, the police, and the person who took her." Madison was fully awake now, pulling her backpack closer to her chest like he might lunge for it. "You're insane. This bear has been mine since I was a kid. My mother gave it to me." "Your mother," Jonathan repeated, his mind latching onto the word. "Who is your mother? Where did she get it?" "That's none of your business." Madison's voice was rising, and a few other passengers were starting to look over. "Look, I don't know what you think. Please," Jonathan said, and the word came out broken. "Please, I'm not trying to scare you. But that bear, I made that bear. My wife and I made it before our daughter was born. That patch on the shoulder, that's from one of my wife's old dresses. Those buttons, we used them because we ran out of the black ones. And that tie is from a shirt I wore to a job interview in 1999. Madison stared at him. Her face had gone pale. "I need you to tell me," Jonathan said, his voice shaking. I need you to tell me where you got that bear, because if you have it, you're connected to what happened to my daughter, and I've spent 20 years trying to find her." The bus was slowing down, approaching a stop. Madison looked at the bear, then at Jonathan, then back at the bear. Her hands were trembling now too. I don't know," she whispered. "My mom, Martha, she said it was from when I was little, but I don't remember." And then something flickered across her face. A shadow, a crack in the foundation, a memory trying to surface. The bus stopped. The doors opened, but neither of them moved. The bus doors hissed shut, and the vehicle lurched forward again. But Madison barely noticed. Her world had narrowed to the man standing in front of her. This stranger in an expensive suit who'd just turned everything she thought she knew upside down. "I don't understand," she said, her voice barely steady. "You're saying this bear was kidnapped? That doesn't make sense." Jonathan lowered himself into the seat across from her, his movements careful, controlled, like he was afraid any sudden motion might shatter the fragile moment between them. 20 years ago, my daughter Amelia was taken from Lincoln Park. She was 4 years old. She had that bear with her. Señor Osito, we called him. When the police searched the park, they found her shoes, her jacket, but not the bear." He paused, his jaw working like the words physically hurt to say. "The police made a decision early on. They kept that detail quiet. They didn't tell the media, didn't include it in any of the press releases. It was their ace in the hole, a way to weed out the crazies who confessed to crimes they didn't commit. Only a handful of people knew the bear was taken. Me, my wife, the lead detective, and whoever took my daughter." Madison's hands tightened on her backpack. She could feel Señor Osito's worn fabric beneath her fingers. The same texture that had comforted her through countless sleepless nights. Panic attacks. The crushing loneliness of a childhood she barely remembered. "But that's impossible," she said. "I've had this bear forever, since I was little. My mom, Martha, she told me it was mine from when I was a baby." "What else did she tell you?" Jonathan asked. Leaning forward, his eyes were intense, searching. "About your childhood, about where you came from." Madison opened her mouth to answer, then stopped. What had Martha told her? She tried to pull up memories, concrete facts, but it was like grasping at smoke. She said my father died before I was born. Car accident. And my grandparents were gone too. It was just us. The words sounded hollow even to her own ears. How many times had she repeated that story? How many times had she accepted it without question? "Do you have pictures from when you were little?" Madison shook her head slowly. "Martha said they were lost in a fire when I was 5. We had to move after that," she said. "Start over. Birth certificate." Madison felt something cold settling in her stomach. "I've never actually seen it. Martha always handled that stuff. When I applied for my nursing license, she gave me a copy, but it always seemed, wrong somehow. The paper was too new, too clean." Jonathan's face had gone pale. "What's your birthday?" "June 15th, 2000. He flinched like she'd slapped him. "Amelia was born June 15th, 2000. The bus swayed around a corner, but Madison felt like the ground was dropping out from under her. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of sick joke, or a coincidence. But then the images came. Flashes, fragmented and chaotic, like a film reel catching fire. A park, different from any park she remembered visiting with Martha. Bigger, with old trees and a fountain. She was small, so small, holding someone's hand. A man's hand, big and warm and safe. "Careful, princessa. Not too fast." A voice, deep, gentle, nothing like the cold, clipped tones Martha used. Another flash, swings. She was on the swings, pumping her legs, flying higher and higher. Someone was pushing her. A woman with kind eyes and dark hair pulled back in a braid. "Higher, mommy. Higher." And then, darkness, hands. Not the safe hands. Different hands. Rough and urgent, grabbing her, pulling her. She was screaming, crying, reaching back toward Amelia. A man's voice, desperate and broken, screaming a name that wasn't hers but somehow was. And then everything went black. Just blackness and the smell of a car interior, and someone telling her to be quiet. Be quiet. Be quiet. Madison gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The memories, if that's what they were, cut off as abruptly as they'd started, leaving her dizzy and nauseous. "Are you okay?" Jonathan's voice seemed to come from very far away. She looked at him, really looked at him, and something in her chest twisted. The shape of his jaw, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners. Even now, even filled with anguish, did she know that face? Had she seen it before? 20 years ago? In another lifetime? "I don't know," she whispered. "I'm seeing things, remembering things, but they can't be real. They can't be my memories." "What are you seeing?" Madison told him. About the park, the swings, the voices, about the hands that grabbed her and the darkness that followed. As she spoke, she watched Jonathan's face crumble, watched tears slip down his cheeks unchecked. "That's Lincoln Park," he said hoarsely. "That's exactly what happened. You were on the swings, Evelyn. My wife. She was pushing you. I went to get us ice cream from a vendor when I came back." His voice broke. "When I came back, you were gone." Evelyn was on the ground, unconscious. Someone had hit her from behind, grabbed you while she was down. By the time she came to, by the time I found her and we called the police, you'd vanished. Madison felt like she was watching this conversation happen to someone else. None of this could be real. She was Madison Crowell, born in Kansas, raised by Martha Kincaid. She was a nurse at St. Michael's. She had a small apartment in Logan Square and a cat named Soup. She was not some missing child from 20 years ago, but the memories kept coming. Unbidden now, more flashes. A room she didn't recognize, with yellow walls and stuffed animals on a shelf. A blanket with moons and stars. Someone, the woman from the park, tucking her in at night, singing something soft and sweet. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. And Señor Osito, always Señor Osito, clutched in her small hands, the blue tie tickling her nose as she fell asleep. "This is insane," Madison said, but her voice had lost its conviction. Even if any of this is true, how would you prove it? How would you know for sure?" Jonathan reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped it. He pulled up a photo and turned the screen toward her. It was a little girl, maybe 3 or 4 years old, with dark curly hair and a gap-toothed smile. She was hugging a brown teddy bear with a blue tie, the same bear that was now in Madison's backpack, the same button eyes, the same crooked patch. "This is Amelia," Jonathan said. "This is my daughter, 3 months before she was taken." Madison stared at the photo. The little girl's face was round, childish, but something about the eyes, the shape of the mouth. "I need you to take a DNA test," Jonathan said suddenly. "Please, I know this is overwhelming. I know it sounds crazy, but please, just do this one thing. If I'm wrong, if this is all some impossible coincidence, I'll leave you alone. I'll never bother you again. But if I'm right..." He couldn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Madison looked at the bear in her backpack, then at the photo on Jonathan's phone, then at Jonathan himself. Every rational part of her brain was screaming that this was impossible, that she should get off this bus right now and never look back. But there was something else, something deeper and more primal, that was whispering a different truth. She thought about Martha, cold, distant Martha, who'd never been affectionate, who'd never told her she loved her, who'd raised her like an obligation rather than a daughter. She thought about the missing photographs, the vague explanations, the way Martha's face would shudder whenever Madison asked about her father or her family history. She thought about the nightmares she'd had for as long as she could remember. The same dream, over and over, hands grabbing her, a voice screaming a name she didn't recognize, the feeling of being torn away from something precious and safe. What if it wasn't a dream? What if it was a memory? "Okay," Madison heard herself say. "Okay, I'll do the test." Jonathan's breath left him in a rush. Thank you. I have a friend, a doctor. He can do it this morning, completely confidential. Results in 72 hours. 72 hours. 3 days to find out if her entire life was a lie." The bus was approaching her stop. Madison stood on shaky legs, slinging her backpack over her shoulder. Jonathan stood too. and for a moment they just looked at each other. Two strangers bound by an impossible maybe. "I need your number," Jonathan said, "so I can coordinate the test and so I can call you. When we get the results." Madison nodded numbly and rattled off her number. Jonathan entered it into his phone like it was the most precious information in the world. "Madison," he said, as she moved toward the door. She turned back. "If this is real, if you're really her, I need you to know something. I never stopped looking. Not for one single day. I hired every investigator, followed every lead, offered every reward. I would have torn the world apart to find you." Madison felt tears burning behind her eyes. "And if I'm not? If the test comes back negative?" Jonathan's face crumpled. "Then I'll have lost her all over again." The bus doors opened. Madison stepped out onto the street, the early morning air hitting her face like a slap. She heard the bus pull away behind her, carrying Jonathan Holloway and his impossible story back into the city. She looked down at her backpack, at Señor Osito's worn face peeking out from the side pocket, the bear she'd carried her whole life, the bear that might be the key to a past she couldn't remember. "Who am I?" she whispered to the empty street. Señor Osito, as always, had no answers. But for the first time in her life, Madison thought maybe, just maybe, she was about to find out. Jonathan Holloway hadn't slept in 36 hours. He sat in his penthouse office, the Chicago skyline sprawling before him through floor-to-ceiling windows, and tried to make sense of spreadsheets that might as well have been written in ancient Greek. The quarterly reports blurred together. The financial projections meant nothing. His company was hemorrhaging money, and he couldn't bring himself to care. All he could see was that bear. All he could think about was her. The DNA test had been done that morning. A simple cheek swab in Dr. Patel's private clinic, completely off the books. Madison had shown up pale and exhausted, her eyes red-rimmed like she'd been crying. She'd barely looked at him, just went through the motions mechanically, then left without a word. 72 hours, Patel had said. Maybe less if he pushed it through. 72 hours to find out if the daughter he'd lost 20 years ago had been right in front of him on a goddamn city bus. Jonathan dropped his head into his hands. His mind kept circling back to that night, the night Amelia was taken. He'd replayed it so many times it felt more like a movie than a memory, the edges worn smooth from constant handling. June 23, 2004. Lincoln Park, 6:47 p.m. The specifics were burned into his brain. He could still smell the summer evening air, hear the distant sound of the fountain, see Evelyn's face as she pushed Amelia on the swings. Their daughter had been laughing, that pure, unself-conscious laugh that only 4-year-olds can manage, the one that made the whole world feel right. "I'm going to get ice cream," he'd told Evelyn. The usual. She'd smiled at him. God, that smile. And nodded. "Strawberry for the princess, mint chip for me, and Rocky Road for the king," Amelia had chimed in. Because that's what she always called him. King Daddy, like he ruled some magical kingdom instead of just being a guy who sold commercial real estate. He'd kissed them both, and jogged toward the ice cream vendor near the park entrance. The line had been longer than expected. Some kid's birthday party? Everyone getting cones. He'd waited, impatient, checking his watch. 7 minutes, maybe 8. When he'd come back, ice cream melting down his hands. Evelyn was on the ground, and Amelia was gone. The next part was chaos. Evelyn coming to, sobbing, saying someone had hit her from behind. Police arriving, cordoning off the area. Search dogs, helicopters, news vans. The whole machinery of a child abduction investigation grinding into motion, while Jonathan stood there holding 3 melting ice cream cones, unable to process that his daughter had simply vanished. They'd found her jacket 20 feet from the swings, her shoes near the parking lot. But no Amelia and no Señor Osito. That detail, the bear being taken, had seemed insignificant at first. But Detective Chen had insisted on keeping it quiet. "If we ever get a suspect," she'd said, "this is how we'll know we have the right person. The kidnapper won't know we're holding this back." They'd never gotten a suspect. Jonathan had spent the next 5 years in a desperate frenzy. He'd hired every private investigator in the Midwest, then the country, then internationally. He'd offered rewards that started at $50,000 and climbed to $2 million. He'd appeared on every news show that would have him, held press conferences, distributed flyers, set up tip lines. Nothing. Evelyn had deteriorated before his eyes. The vibrant, brilliant woman he'd married became a ghost, haunting their house, sitting in Amelia's room for hours, clutching the clothes their daughter had left behind. She'd started seeing therapists, taking medication, going through the motions of recovery. But Jonathan had known, had seen it in her eyes, that she was already gone. She'd died 5 years after Amelia's disappearance. The official cause was a brain aneurysm, sudden and catastrophic. But Jonathan knew the truth. Evelyn had died of a broken heart, slowly, day by day, until her body finally gave up the fight. After that, Jonathan had stopped feeling. He'd thrown himself into work with a manic intensity, building his company into an empire, making more money than he could ever spend. But it was all meaningless. He was going through the motions, waiting for, what? Permission to die, a reason to keep living. And then last night, on a bus, he'd seen the bear. His bear, their bear. His phone buzzed, making him jump. A text from Detective Chen, retired now, but still involved with missing children cases on a consulting basis. Got your message. Can you come by? Need to talk. Jonathan grabbed his jacket and was out the door before he could think twice. Madison hadn't gone home. She'd wandered the streets of Chicago as dawn broke, watching the city wake up around her, feeling like she was seeing it all for the first time, or maybe the last time. She wasn't sure anymore. Her apartment felt wrong now. Everything felt wrong. The walls seemed to close in on her, filled with Martha's things, Martha's choices, Martha's lies, because they were lies, weren't they? They had to be. She'd tried calling Martha 3 times. Each call had gone to voicemail. You've reached Martha Kincaid. Leave a message. That voice, cold, clipped, efficient, the voice that had raised her, if you could even call it that. Martha had never been warm, never been affectionate. She'd provided food, shelter, the basics. But love. Madison couldn't remember a single time Martha had said she loved her. Couldn't remember a hug that felt genuine. A moment of tenderness that wasn't forced or perfunctory. She'd always told herself it was just Martha's way. Some people weren't demonstrative. It didn't mean anything. But now she wondered. Now she questioned everything. Madison found herself at a 24-hour diner on Ashland, sliding into a booth with cracked vinyl seats. She ordered coffee, black, the way Martha had always made it, though Madison hated it that way, and pulled out her phone. She'd been doing research. Obsessive, frantic research. She'd looked up the Amelia Holloway case, found the old news articles, the press conferences, the heartbreaking footage of a younger Jonathan Holloway begging for his daughter's return. Please, he'd said to the cameras, his voice breaking. If you have her, just bring her home. I don't care about anything else. I just want my little girl back. Madison had watched that clip a dozen times, studying his face, trying to see if she recognized him. And maybe she did. Maybe that was him in her fragmented memories, the man with the safe hands who'd called her princessa. Or maybe she was just seeing what she wanted to see. She'd also found articles about Evelyn Holloway's death. Brilliant architect. The articles said, devoted mother, died tragically 5 years after her daughter's disappearance. There were photos of her, beautiful, with intelligent eyes and a warm smile. Madison had studied those photos too, searching for herself in Evelyn's features. The eyes, maybe. The shape of the mouth, or maybe not. More coffee, hun. The waitress appeared, pot in hand. Madison nodded, pushing her cup forward. As the waitress poured, Madison noticed her looking at the backpack on the seat beside her, at Señor Osito. Specifically, cute bear, the waitress said. Had it long. Forever, Madison said automatically. Then, quieter. At least, I think so. The waitress gave her a strange look and moved on. Madison pulled Señor Osito out of her backpack and set him on the table. In the diner's harsh fluorescent light, she could see every detail. The frayed blue tie, the crooked patch on the shoulder. She could see now that it was made from floral fabric, the kind you'd find on an old dress, the mismatched button eyes. She thought about what Jonathan had said, that he and his wife had made this bear, that they'd run out of matching buttons, that the tie was from a job interview in 1999. These weren't generic details. These were specific, personal, the kind of things you couldn't fake. Martha had always been vague about the bear. You've had that since you were little. It was yours from before. Before what? Before the fire that supposedly destroyed all their photos. Before the move when Madison was 5 years old. The same age Amelia Halloway would have been in 2005. A year after she was kidnapped, Madison's hands started shaking. She put them flat on the table, trying to steady herself. She thought about her childhood, the parts she could remember anyway. Growing up in a small house in rural Kansas. No neighbors close by. Martha homeschooling her until she was 12, then finally letting her go to public school. No friends over, ever. No birthday parties. A childhood that felt less like protection and more like hiding. The nightmares started when she was young. She'd wake up screaming, and Martha would come in, not to comfort, but to tell her to be quiet, to go back to sleep, to stop making noise. The dreams were always the same, being torn away from someone, a voice calling a name she didn't recognize, darkness and terror and loss. What if they weren't nightmares? What if they were memories trying to surface? Her phone rang, making her jump. Unknown number. Her heart hammered as she answered. "Madison, it's Jonathan." His voice sounded wrecked, like he'd been crying, or maybe like he hadn't slept. Probably both. "Hi," she managed. "I just wanted to check on you, make sure you're, I don't know, okay, if that's even possible right now." Madison let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "I'm at a diner. I can't go home. I can't face her. Not yet." "Martha." "Yeah." Madison closed her eyes. "I keep trying to remember my childhood, but it's like there's a wall in my head. Everything before I was 5 is just blank, and the things I do remember feel wrong now, like they don't fit." Detective Chen, she handled Amelia's case. She said that's common with childhood trauma. The brain blocks it out to protect you. "I've been reading about the case," Madison admitted. "About your daughter, about your wife. I'm so sorry for all of it." There was a long silence then. If you're Amelia, then you have nothing to be sorry for. None of this was your fault. And if I'm not, if the test comes back and I'm just some random woman who happened to have the same bear, then I'll deal with it, Jonathan said. But his voice cracked on the words. "I've dealt with worse." Madison doubted that was true. She doubted anything could be worse than losing your child, then thinking you'd found her, then losing her all over again. 72 hours, she said quietly. 67 now, Jonathan corrected. "Not that I'm counting." Despite everything, Madison felt a small smile tug at her mouth. "Yeah, not that you're counting." Another silence, but this one felt different, less heavy. "Madison, can I ask you something?" "Sure. He stopped, started again. "Do you ever feel like you're missing something? Like there's a piece of you that's lost?" Madison looked at Señor Osito on the table, his button eyes staring at nothing. "Every single day of my life," she whispered. When they hung up, Madison sat for a long time, holding the bear, watching the sun rise fully over Chicago. Somewhere in this city, Jonathan Halloway was doing the same thing, both of them counting down the hours until they'd know the truth. Whatever that truth turned out to be, the email came at 6:47 a.m. On the third day, Jonathan was already awake. He'd been awake for hours, staring at his phone like he could will the results to arrive faster. When his inbox chimed, his heart stopped. Subject, DNA analysis results. Confidential. His hands shook so badly he had to set the phone down on his desk. He took 3 deep breaths, the way his therapist had taught him years ago, back when he'd been trying to learn how to function after Evelyn died. Then he opened the email. The medical jargon blurred together at first. Technical terms, percentages, genetic markers. But then he found the line that mattered. The only line in the entire document that meant anything. Probability of paternity. 97% conclusion. Jonathan Halloway cannot be excluded as the biological father of Madison Crowell. The phone slipped from his fingers and clattered onto the desk. She was his daughter. Madison was Amelia, his little girl, his princessa, had been alive this whole time, 20 years, 20 goddamn years. living under a different name, raised by someone else, believing she was someone she wasn't. Jonathan made a sound he didn't recognize, something between a sob and a laugh. His chest felt like it was cracking open. 20 years of grief, of searching, of hoping against hope. And she'd been out there the whole time. She'd been right here in Chicago, working at a hospital, riding the bus, carrying Señor Osito like an anchor to a past. She couldn't remember. He grabbed his phone with shaking hands and pulled up Madison's number. She answered on the first ring. Jonathan. Her voice was small, terrified. "It's positive," he said, and his voice broke completely. "Madison, it's positive. You're her. You're Amelia. You're my daughter." Silence. Long, stretching silence. Then he heard her breath hitch, heard the sound of crying, muffled like she'd pressed her hand over her mouth. "I need to see you," Jonathan said. "Please, where are you?" "I'm at home," she whispered. "I came back last night. I couldn't avoid her anymore." "Is she there, Martha?" "No, she's at work. She works at the post office, graveyard shift. She won't be back until noon." "I'm coming over. Right now, we need to talk. And then we need to call the police." "The police." Madison's voice pitched higher. "Jonathan, I can't." "Madison." He forced himself to speak calmly, even though everything in him wanted to scream. "If you're Amelia, and the DNA says you are, then Martha Kincaid kidnapped you. She's been holding you for 20 years. We need to involve the authorities." Another silence then, so quietly he almost missed it. "What if I don't remember? What if none of this feels real? Then we'll figure it out together," Jonathan said. "But right now, I need to see you. I need to know you're safe. Can you text me your address?" She did. An apartment in Logan Square, a 40-minute drive from his penthouse. Jonathan was out the door in 30 seconds. Madison sat on her couch, staring at nothing, while the truth crashed over her in waves, 97%. She was Amelia Halloway. Everything she knew about herself, every memory, every story Martha had told her, every piece of her identity, was a lie. Madison Crowell didn't exist, had never existed. She was a fiction, a construction, a mask placed over a stolen child. She looked around the apartment, the place she'd lived for 3 years, since graduating nursing school. The furniture was secondhand. The walls were bare except for a few generic prints she'd bought at Target. There were no family photos, because Martha never wanted pictures taken. No childhood mementos because they'd been lost in the fire. No roots, no history, no proof that she'd ever been real, because she hadn't been. Madison's eyes fell on a framed photo on the bookshelf, the only one in the whole apartment. It showed her and Martha at her nursing school graduation. Madison was smiling, proud, holding her diploma. Martha stood beside her, not touching, her face neutral, looking at it now. Madison could see what she'd never let herself see before. Martha wasn't looking at her. She was looking past the camera, her jaw tight, like she couldn't wait for the moment to be over. There had never been love there, never been warmth, just obligation, or maybe guilt, or maybe fear. Martha had lived for 20 years with a kidnapped child, knowing that any day, someone might recognize her, might see Señor Osito and ask questions, might notice that Madison's eyes looked like photos of missing Amelia Halloway. No wonder she'd kept them isolated. No wonder she'd homeschooled Madison for years, only letting her go to public school when Madison had begged, threatened to run away. No wonder she'd never been affectionate. How could you love a child who was living proof of your crime? Madison's phone buzzed. A text from Jonathan. "I'm here." She stood on shaking legs and went to the door. When she opened it, Jonathan was standing there, and the look on his face. He looked destroyed and elated and terrified all at once. His eyes were red-rimmed, his hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it for hours when he saw her. He made that sound again, the one between a sob and a laugh. "Can I?" He started, then stopped. "Can I hug you? Is that okay?" Madison nodded, not trusting her voice. Jonathan stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her, and Madison felt something inside her crack. He was solid, warm, real, and he was crying. She could feel his shoulders shaking, could feel tears soaking into her hair. "I thought you were dead," he whispered against her hair. "For 20 years, I thought I'd lost you forever. And you were here. You were alive." Madison's own tears came then, hot and overwhelming. She didn't remember him, didn't remember being Amelia, but her body remembered something, remembered safety, remembered home. Her arms came up around him, clutching, holding on like he might disappear. They stood like that for a long time, two people trying to bridge a 20-year gap with a single embrace. When they finally pulled apart, Jonathan kept his hands on her shoulders, like he couldn't bear to fully let go. "We need to call the police. Detective Chen. She handled your case. She'll know what to do." "I don't know if I can do this," Madison said. "I don't know if I can face her, Martha, when she comes home." "You don't have to face her alone. I'll be here. The police will be here." Jonathan's jaw tightened. "She took you from us. She stole 20 years. She doesn't get to walk away from that." Madison thought about Martha coming home at noon, tired from her shift, expecting to find Madison getting ready for work. What would her face look like when she saw police cars? When she realized it was over, would she run, fight, or would she just accept it? "There's something else," Madison said. "Something I need to know before the police come. Anything. Why did she keep the bear? If she was trying to hide who I was, why let me keep the one thing that could identify me?" Jonathan's face softened. The police theorized about that. When a child is taken that young, especially traumatically, they can form attachments to objects that help them feel safe. If the kidnapper tried to take away that object, "I would have had a meltdown," Madison finished, the memory surfacing. "I remember now. I remember screaming, not being able to breathe. And Martha, she looked so angry, but also afraid, like she didn't know what to do with me. She probably realized it was easier to let you keep it than risk drawing attention with a hysterical child." Madison looked at Señor Osito, sitting on the couch where she'd left him, the bear that had saved her, in a way, the bear that had been her only real connection to who she actually was, even when she didn't know it. Jonathan's phone rang. He glanced at it. "It's Detective Chen. I called her after I got the results. She's been waiting for my word to move forward." "Tell her to come," Madison said. Her voice sounded stronger than she felt. "Tell her everything." Jonathan answered the call, his eyes never leaving Madison's face. "Chen, it's positive. DNA confirms she's Amelia. We need you here." He rattled off the address. "And Chen? Martha Kincaid works at the West Loop Post Office, graveyard shift. She'll be home around noon. We need units here before then." When he hung up, Madison asked, "What happens now?" "Now, the police come. They'll want to question you, get your statement. They'll arrest Martha when she arrives, and then," Jonathan's voice caught, "then we start figuring out how to put your life back together." "I don't even know what my life is anymore," Madison whispered. "I'm not Madison, but I don't remember being Amelia. So who am I?" Jonathan reached out and took her hand. His grip was warm, steady. "You're my daughter," he said simply. "Everything else, we'll figure out. But that part, that's not up for debate. You're Amelia Halloway. You always were." Madison looked down at their joined hands. His were larger, scarred from years of life she knew nothing about. Hers were smaller, marked with tiny burns from her nursing work. Two strangers' hands, a father and daughter who'd lost 20 years. "I'm so angry," Madison said suddenly. "At her? At Martha. She stole everything from me. From you. From your wife." Her voice rose. "She let your wife die thinking I was gone forever. How do you come back from something like that?" "I don't know," Jonathan said honestly. "But we'll figure it out. Together." A car pulled up outside, then another, through the window. Madison could see unmarked police vehicles parking along the street. "They're here," she said. Jonathan squeezed her hand. "Are you ready?" Madison thought about it. Was she ready to watch Martha get arrested? Ready to have her entire life exposed as a lie? Ready to become Amelia Halloway? Whoever that was. No, she wasn't ready, but it was happening anyway. "Let's do this," she said. Jonathan opened the door, and Detective Chen walked in, an older woman with sharp eyes and a kind face. She looked at Madison, and something in her expression crumbled. "My God," she breathed. "It really is you, after all this time." Behind her, more officers filed in, setting up equipment, preparing for Martha's arrival. The apartment that had been Madison's refuge was transforming into a crime scene. Her whole life, being cataloged and processed as evidence. Madison sat on the couch. Señor Osito clutched in her hands and waited for the woman she'd called mother to come home and face justice. Martha Kincaid's car pulled into the parking lot at 11:53 a.m. Madison watched from the window, her stomach twisting into knots. The beige sedan, 15 years old, meticulously maintained, parked in its usual spot. Through the windshield, she could see Martha checking her phone, probably scrolling through news or email, like she did every morning after her shift. She looked so normal, like any other tired middle-aged woman coming home from work. "That's her," Detective Chen asked quietly, standing beside Madison. "That's her," Madison confirmed, her voice barely above a whisper. Chen spoke into her radio. "Subject has arrived. All units hold position until she's inside the building. I want this clean. No spooking her into running." Madison's hands were shaking. Jonathan moved closer, not touching her but present, a solid presence at her back. Martha got out of the car, her movements stiff with exhaustion. She was wearing her postal uniform, navy blue pants, light blue shirt, sensible shoes. Her graying hair was pulled back in the same tight bun she always wore. 55 years old, unremarkable, forgettable. The perfect disguise for someone hiding a terrible secret. Martha grabbed her purse and headed toward the building. Madison watched her climb the stairs to the second floor, heard her footsteps in the hallway outside, heard her keys jingling. The door opened. Martha stepped inside, eyes down, already moving toward the kitchen like she did every morning. She made it 3 steps before she noticed the room full of police officers. She froze. For a moment, no one moved. Martha stood there, purse hanging from one hand, keys in the other, her face cycling through confusion, recognition, and then, there it was, pure terror. Her eyes found Madison, still standing by the window. Then they moved to Jonathan, to Detective Chen, to the officers positioned throughout the apartment, back to Madison. "Madison," Martha said, and her voice sounded almost normal. Almost, "What's going on? Who are these people?" Detective Chen stepped forward, badge out. "Martha Kincaid. I'm Detective Janet Chen, Chicago PD. I need you to put down your purse and keys and place your hands where I can see them." Martha didn't move. She was still staring at Madison. And Madison could see the calculation happening behind her eyes, the desperate search for a way out. "I don't understand," Martha said. "Madison, what is this?" "Don't," Madison said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. "Don't pretend you don't know. We did a DNA test. I know who I am. I know what you did." Something flickered across Martha's face. Was it relief? Resignation? Madison couldn't tell. "Miss Kincaid," Chen said again, firmer this time. "Put down your belongings now." Martha's purse hit the floor. Her keys followed. She raised her hands slowly, and Madison saw they were trembling. "Martha Kincaid," Chen continued, "you're under arrest for the kidnapping of Amelia Holloway, obstruction of justice and child endangerment. You have the right to remain silent." "She wasn't endangered," Martha interrupted, her voice sharp. "I took care of her. I kept her safe. You kidnapped her." Jonathan's voice cracked like a whip, making everyone in the room flinch. He took a step forward, and an officer immediately moved to intercept. "You stole my daughter. You let my wife die thinking Amelia was dead. You took everything from us." Martha's eyes finally left Madison and settled on Jonathan. "I didn't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice," Chen said. "Officers, cuff her." 2 uniformed officers moved in. Martha didn't resist as they pulled her arms behind her back as the handcuffs clicked into place, but her eyes stayed locked on Madison. "I never hurt you," Martha said. "I never laid a hand on you. I fed you, clothed you, gave you a home. You gave me a prison," Madison shot back. And suddenly, all the anger she'd been suppressing came flooding out. "You isolated me. You homeschooled me so no one would ask questions. You never let me have friends over. You never hugged me, never told me you loved me, never treated me like I was anything more than an obligation. Because you were an obligation. Martha's composure was cracking now, her voice rising. You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to spend 20 years looking over my shoulder, waiting for the day someone would recognize you? I was supposed to get paid. I was supposed to drop you off and collect my money and disappear. But she left me. She took off and left me holding a screaming 4-year-old with half the country looking for her. The room went silent. Detective Chen's voice was sharp. Who left you, Martha? Who hired you to take Amelia? Martha's mouth snapped shut. Madison could see her retreating, pulling back into herself. Martha, Chen pressed. If someone else orchestrated this, if you were just following orders, that matters. That makes a difference in how this plays out for you. But you need to talk to us. Who hired you? Martha's eyes darted around the room, weighing options. Madison could practically see her mind working, calculating. Finally, she seemed to deflate. I want a lawyer, she said. That's your right, Chen acknowledged. But Martha, listen to me. Whoever hired you, they walked away free while you've been living in fear for 20 years. They're out there living their life while you're about to go to prison for kidnapping. Is that fair? Is that right? Martha laughed, a bitter, broken sound. Nothing about this has been fair. Then make it fair, Jonathan said, his voice raw. Tell us who did this. Tell us who took my daughter. You want to make this right. Start there. Martha looked at him for a long moment. Then her eyes went to Madison again, really looked at her. Maybe for the first time in years. You look like her, Martha said quietly. Like your mother, Evelyn. I didn't see it when you were little, but now. She shook her head. God, you look just like her. You knew my mother. Madison's voice cracked. I knew of her. Everyone did. Brilliant architect. Devoted wife. Perfect life. Martha's lip curled. She had everything. And you took her daughter to punish her. Jonathan's fists were clenched at his sides. I didn't take her to punish anyone, Martha snapped. I took her because I needed the money, because I was desperate and stupid, and I made a choice I've regretted every single day since. Who hired you? Chen asked again. Martha was silent for a long moment. Then, Lorraine Ashford. The name hit Jonathan like a physical blow. Madison saw him stagger, saw an officer reach out to steady him. What? Jonathan's voice was barely audible. What did you say? Lorraine Ashford, Martha repeated. Evelyn's sister, your sister-in-law. She hired me to take Amelia. The room erupted. Officers talking over each other, Chen barking orders into her radio, Jonathan making a sound like he'd been gutted, but Madison just stared at Martha, trying to process what she'd just heard. Why? Madison asked. Why would she do that? Martha's expression was almost pitying. You'd have to ask her. All I know is she contacted me through someone. I did some work for her years ago, moving packages she didn't want traced. She said she wanted the kid taken, wanted it to look random. Said she'd pay me $50,000 to grab her from the park, hold her for a few days, then bring her to a drop point where Lorraine would pick her up and take over from there. But that's not what happened, Chen said. No. Martha's voice was hollow. The kidnapping went off fine, easier than I expected. Actually, the mother went down easy. The kid came with me without too much fuss. Once I showed her, I had her damn bare. But then the media coverage started. National news, Amber Alerts, reward money climbing by the hour. Lorraine panicked. She called me, told me to sit tight, said she'd be in touch. I waited 3 days in a motel room with a crying 4-year-old. She never called back. When I tried to reach her, the number was disconnected. So you kept Amelia, Chen said. Instead of bringing her to the police, instead of taking her home, you kept her. And did what? Martha shot back. Turned myself in, went to prison for kidnapping while Lorraine Ashford walked free. I'd already committed the crime. The damage was done. So I disappeared, changed the kid's name, moved to Kansas, registered her under false documents, homeschooled her until I thought it was safe, tried to build something that resembled a normal life. But you never loved her, Jonathan said, his voice shaking with rage. Martha's face hardened. I never hurt her. That's more than some real parents can say. Madison felt something break loose inside her. She crossed the room in 3 strides and stopped inches from Martha, the woman who'd raised her, who'd given her a name that wasn't hers, who'd stolen 20 years. "You destroyed me," Madison said, her voice low and dangerous. "You destroyed my father. You destroyed a woman you never even met, watched her die from grief, and you never said a word. You never tried to make it right. You just lived like nothing was wrong, like I was yours. You were mine," Martha said, and for the first time, Madison heard something in her voice that might have been emotion. "For 20 years you were mine. I know I wasn't perfect. I know I wasn't warm, but I kept you safe. I kept you alive. Doesn't that count for something?" "No," Madison said simply. "It doesn't." Chen stepped between them. "Get her out of here," she told the officers. "Take her downtown, process her, and get her a lawyer, and someone find out everything we can about Lorraine Ashford. I want to know where she is, what she's been doing for the past 20 years, and I want her in custody as soon as possible." The officers led Martha toward the door. She shuffled forward in her handcuffs, and for a moment, Madison almost felt sorry for her. Almost, at the door, Martha stopped and looked back one last time. "Madison," she said. "That's not my name," Madison replied. Martha's face crumpled. "No, I suppose it's not." Then she was gone, led down the hallway by officers, and Madison was left standing in the apartment that had been her home, but never really was. Surrounded by strangers who were trying to piece together the ruins of her life, Jonathan approached slowly, carefully, like she might shatter. "Are you okay?" Madison laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "My entire life was a lie. The woman who raised me kidnapped me for money, and apparently it was ordered by my own aunt, someone who was supposed to be family. So no, I'm not okay. I don't know if I'll ever be okay again. We'll find her," Chen said, her voice firm. "We'll find Lorraine Ashford, and she'll pay for what she did. I promise you that." Madison nodded, but she felt numb, hollowed out, like everything inside her had been scooped out and replaced with static. "I need to get out of here," she said suddenly. I can't stay in this apartment. There are too many lies here." "You can stay with me," Jonathan said immediately. "I have plenty of room, or if that's too much, I can get you a hotel. Anything you need. Your place," Madison heard herself say. "I want to stay with you. I want to," she swallowed hard. "I want to try to remember being Amelia." Jonathan's eyes filled with tears. "Okay, yes, okay." Detective Chen looked between them. "We're going to need full statements from both of you, but that can wait a few hours. Get her out of here, Jonathan. Take her somewhere safe. I'll call when we have more information." Jonathan put a hand on Madison's shoulder. Gentle, tentative. "Come on, let's go home." Home. The word felt foreign, impossible. But Madison let him guide her out of the apartment, down the stairs, into the bright Chicago afternoon. Behind them, officers swarmed the place she thought was her home, turning it into evidence, documenting 20 years of lies, and somewhere out there, Lorraine Ashford was living her life, free, unaware that after 20 years, her crime was finally catching up to her. Detective Chen found Lorraine Ashford 3 days later. She was living in a beachfront mansion in the Florida Keys, under her own name, brazenly confident that no one would ever connect her to a 20-year-old kidnapping. The irony wasn't lost on Chen. While Martha Kincaid had spent 2 decades looking over her shoulder, Lorraine had been sipping mojitos on a private beach, living off money she'd embezzled from the Holloway family business years before. Madison watched the arrest footage in Jonathan's home office, Jonathan standing beside her, both of them silent as federal agents swarmed the property. Lorraine Ashford emerged in designer sunglasses and a silk robe, looking more annoyed than afraid, like this was a minor inconvenience rather than the end of her freedom. "That's her," Jonathan said, his voice flat. "That's Evelyn's sister." Madison studied the woman on screen. Late 50s, well-preserved, with the kind of casual elegance that came from money and privilege. She looked nothing like the monster Madison had been imagining. She looked like someone's aunt, someone who'd show up at family gatherings with expensive wine and stories about European vacations. She looked like family. "I don't understand," Madison said for what felt like the 100th time. "Why would she do this? Why would she take me?" Jonathan was quiet for a long moment when he finally spoke. His voice was heavy with old pain. Lorraine always resented Evelyn, even when they were kids. Evelyn was the smart one, the talented one. She got into architecture school, won awards, built this incredible career. Lorraine bounced from job to job, relationship to relationship. She was always asking for money, always had some scheme that needed funding. He paused, his jaw working. When I started dating Evelyn, Lorraine saw an opportunity. She thought if she got close to the family, close to me, she could get a piece of what we were building. So I gave her a job, put her in charge of accounting for one of our development projects. And she stole from you, Madison guessed. $2 million over 3 years, Jonathan confirmed. We didn't catch it until the project was nearly bankrupt. When we confronted her, she didn't deny it, didn't apologize. She said we owed her, said Evelyn had taken everything from her, our parents' attention, the inheritance, even me. She said she was just taking what should have been hers all along. Madison felt sick. So you fired her. We fired her and threatened to prosecute. She begged. God, she begged us not to press charges. Evelyn had a soft heart. She convinced me to let it go. Said Lorraine was still family. Said everyone deserved a second chance. Jonathan's hands clenched into fists. So we let her walk away, made her sign papers saying she'd stay away from the business, away from us. We thought that was the end of it, but it wasn't. No, Jonathan's voice cracked. She came to Amelia's 4th birthday party, just showed up, acted like nothing had happened, brought a huge present, smiled for photos. Evelyn was uncomfortable but didn't want to make a scene. I should have thrown her out. I should have... He stopped, composing himself. She left after an hour, 4 months later. You were gone. Madison watched the screen as Lorraine was led to a federal vehicle in handcuffs. Even in custody, she held her head high, defiant. Detective Chen thinks she planned it from the beginning. Jonathan continued. The birthday party was reconnaissance. She was watching you, watching our routines, figuring out how to hurt us in the worst possible way. By taking me. By taking you, he confirmed. Chen's theory is that Lorraine initially planned to ransom you back, get the money she felt she was owed, and twist the knife at the same time. But when the media coverage exploded, when it became the biggest story in the country, she panicked, realized she couldn't go through with it without getting caught. So she abandoned the whole plan, left Martha holding the bag, and fled to Florida to live off the money she'd already stolen. Madison thought about that. 20 years ago, while Jonathan and Evelyn were drowning in grief, while Martha was hiding in Kansas with a stolen child, Lorraine had been building a new life in paradise. No guilt, no remorse, just freedom. She let your wife die, Madison said quietly. She let Evelyn die thinking I was gone forever, and she just lived her life. Jonathan's face was stone. Yeah, she did. The extradition took 2 weeks. Federal charges, state charges, jurisdictional nightmares. But eventually, Lorraine Ashford was brought back to Chicago in shackles, and Madison found herself sitting in a witness room at the federal building, waiting to see the woman who'd destroyed her family. You don't have to do this, Detective Chen said for the 3rd time. We have enough evidence without you confronting her. I need to, Madison insisted. I need to look her in the eye. I need to understand why. Jonathan sat beside her, his presence steady. Over the past 2 weeks, they'd been navigating the impossible terrain of their relationship. A father and daughter separated for 20 years. Trying to build something from rubble, it wasn't easy. Madison still didn't remember being Amelia. Still woke up some mornings expecting to be in her old apartment. Still reached for her phone to call Martha before remembering. But slowly, piece by piece, they were finding each other. Jonathan had shown her home videos. Shaky footage of a tiny Amelia learning to walk, to talk, to laugh. Madison had watched herself at 2 years old, stumbling around a living room she didn't recognize, calling for Mommy and Daddy in a voice she couldn't remember having. She'd seen Evelyn, brilliant, beautiful Evelyn, scooping up her toddler self and spinning her around while Amelia shrieked with joy. She'd wept watching those videos, not from memory. The memories were still locked away, but from grief. Grief for the life she'd lost, for the parents she couldn't remember, for the 20 years stolen from all of them. The door opened, and Lorraine Ashford was let in, She looked smaller in person. The designer clothes had been replaced with an orange jumpsuit. The elegant composure was cracked at the edges. But when her eyes found Madison, something flickered there. Recognition, maybe, or curiosity. "So," Lorraine said, sitting down across from them, "you're little Amelia, all grown up?" Madison's hands clenched under the table. "Why? Why what? Why did you do it? Why did you take me?" Lorraine leaned back in her chair, studying Madison like she was something interesting under a microscope. "Your father didn't tell you. He told me you were angry, that you felt cheated, but I want to hear it from you. I want to understand how someone could do something so evil to their own family." Something dark passed across Lorraine's face. "Family," she repeated, like the word tasted bitter. "You want to talk about family? Let me tell you about family. Evelyn was the golden child. Perfect grades, perfect career, perfect husband. Meanwhile, I was the screw-up, the disappointment, the one who couldn't get her life together. And you know what really killed me? She didn't even have to try. Everything just fell into her lap." "So you stole from them," Madison said. "I took what I deserved," Lorraine corrected. "What should have been mine if our parents hadn't played favorites? What should have been mine if Jonathan hadn't been so blinded by Evelyn's perfect act that he couldn't see I was the one who actually understood him?" Jonathan made a sound of disgust. "You're delusional." "Am I?" Lorraine's eyes flashed. "You don't think I saw how you looked at me? Before Evelyn poisoned you against me, we could have had something, Jonathan. We could have been great together. But she took that too. She took everything." "So you took their daughter," Chen said, her voice hard. "You hired someone to kidnap a 4-year-old child, to traumatize her, to make her parents think she was dead, and you did it for what? Revenge? Money? Both," Lorraine said simply. "I figured I'd get the ransom, get the money I was owed, and watch them suffer the way I'd suffered. It was perfect. Poetic, even. Except it didn't work," Madison said. "You got scared and ran, left Martha to deal with the consequences while you lived in a mansion in Florida." Lorraine shrugged. "Martha was paid to do a job. It's not my fault she couldn't handle the heat. I certainly wasn't going to stick around and get caught because she was incompetent." Madison felt rage building in her chest, hot and suffocating. "You let Evelyn die. You let her die thinking her daughter was gone. Do you have any idea what that did to her? What it did to my father?" "Your father?" Lorraine laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "He's not your father anymore, sweetie. He's a stranger who shares your DNA. You don't remember him. You don't remember any of it. Madison Crowell is who you are now. I made sure of that." Madison stood abruptly, her chair scraping back. Jonathan was on his feet immediately, a hand on her shoulder, grounding her. "You're wrong," Madison said, her voice shaking. "You didn't make me into Madison. Martha did that, and she was terrified and desperate and wrong. But at least she kept me alive. You just destroyed. That's all you know how to do. Destroy and take and pretend you're the victim." "I am a victim," Lorraine insisted. "You just can't see it because you're too busy playing the tragic stolen princess." "No," Jonathan said, his voice like ice. "You're not a victim. You're a narcissist who couldn't stand that your sister was happy. So you took the thing she loved most and tried to break her, and you succeeded. Evelyn died because of you. But you know what? You failed too. Because Amelia's alive, we found her, and you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison thinking about that." Lorraine's composure finally cracked, her face twisted with rage. "You don't get to win. You don't get to ride off into the sunset like some fucking happy ending. That girl is broken. She doesn't know who she is. She'll never be your daughter again. Never be Amelia. I made sure of that. Get her out of here," Chen said to the guards, as Lorraine was dragged from the room. She kept screaming, "You'll never get her back. You'll never—" The door slammed, cutting off her voice. The room fell silent. Madison stood there, trembling, Jonathan's hand still on her shoulder. Chen was talking, saying something about trial dates and testimony, but Madison couldn't hear her over the roaring in her ears. "She's wrong," Jonathan said quietly. "About all of it. You're not broken, Amelia. You're here. You're alive. That's what matters." But Madison wasn't sure, because Lorraine was right about one thing. She wasn't Amelia anymore. The memories were gone. Locked behind a wall her brain had built to protect her. She was Madison Crowell, a construct, a fiction, and she didn't know how to be anyone else. "I want to go home," she said, then caught herself. "To your place, I mean. I want to go to your place." "It is home," Jonathan said gently. "For as long as you need it to be." They left the federal building, stepping out into Chicago sunshine that felt too bright, too cheerful for the darkness they'd just confronted. Detective Chen had promised justice. Lorraine would face trial, would likely get decades in prison. Martha was already cooperating, her testimony sealing Lorraine's fate. But justice didn't undo the damage, didn't give Madison back 20 years, didn't bring Evelyn back to life. "Jonathan," Madison said as they walked to his car. "Yeah, tell me about her. About Evelyn. About my mother." Jonathan's step faltered. Then he nodded, unlocking the car. "Get in. I'll tell you everything." And as they drove through Chicago, the city where Amelia had been born, where she'd been taken, where Madison had lived unknowingly for years, Jonathan told her about Evelyn Halloway, the architect who designed buildings that made people feel safe, the mother who sang lullabies and read bedtime stories and loved her daughter more than life itself, the woman who died of a broken heart, never knowing her child would one day come home. The nightmares started 3 weeks after Martha's arrest. Madison, she still couldn't think of herself as Amelia, not really, would wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, her heart hammering against her ribs. The dreams were always the same. Hands grabbing her, darkness closing in, a voice screaming a name that both was and wasn't hers. But now there were new elements, faces she recognized from photos and videos. Evelyn's kind eyes, Jonathan's desperate expression, the park, the swings, the moment everything ended. Except they weren't memories. They were constructions. Her brain's attempt to fill in the blanks with information she'd been given, real memories or manufactured ones. She couldn't tell the difference anymore. "I don't know who I am," she told Dr. Sarah Reeves, the trauma specialist Jonathan had hired. "I look in the mirror and I don't recognize myself. Am I Madison? Am I Amelia? Am I both? Neither." Dr. Reeves, a woman in her 60s with gentle eyes and a no-nonsense approach, leaned forward in her chair. "Identity isn't just memory, Madison. It's the sum of your experiences, your choices, your relationships. You've lived 24 years, 20 as Madison, 4 as Amelia. Both of those people are real. Both of them are you. But I don't remember being Amelia. Those 4 years are just gone, and everyone expects me to be her." Jonathan looks at me and I can see it in his eyes. He's waiting for his daughter to come back, but she's not coming back. She's dead. Martha killed her when she changed my name and locked me away in Kansas. "Do you really believe that?" Madison pressed her palms against her eyes. "I don't know what I believe anymore. The truth was, she was drowning. Every day felt like trying to breathe underwater. Jonathan was wonderful, patient, understanding, giving her space when she needed it. But she could see the hope in his eyes every time she walked into a room, could feel the weight of his expectations pressing down on her. He wanted his daughter back. She wanted to give that to him, but she didn't know how to be someone she couldn't remember being. The real breaking point came on a Tuesday. Madison had gone back to work at St. Michael's, trying to reclaim some sense of normalcy, but nothing was normal anymore. Her coworkers knew. Of course they knew. The story had been national news. The nurses whispered when they thought she couldn't hear. Patients asked for her autograph, like she was some kind of celebrity instead of a victim. She lasted 4 hours before she had a panic attack in the supply closet. Her supervisor, Elena, found her hyperventilating among boxes of gauze and IV bags. "Madison, honey, you need to go home. You're not ready for this." "I need to work," Madison gasped. "I need something that's mine, something that's real." "You are real," Elena said gently. "But you're also traumatized, and you can't pour from an empty cup, sweetheart. Go home. Take care of yourself. We'll be here when you're ready." Madison drove to Jonathan's penthouse, because she couldn't call it home. Couldn't accept that word for a place that still felt foreign. Despite his best efforts, she found him in his office, on the phone with what sounded like lawyers, and she just broke. "I can't do this," she said when he hung up. Her voice sounded distant, detached. "I can't be what you need me to be." Jonathan's face went pale. "What are you talking about? I'm not her. I'm not Amelia. I don't remember her. I don't remember you. I don't remember any of it. And I can feel you waiting for me to remember, hoping every day that something will click and I'll just become her again. But I won't. I can't. Madison, and I'm angry." The words burst out of her, loud and raw. "I'm so fucking angry at Martha for taking me, at Lorraine for ordering it, but also at you for not finding me sooner, for not looking hard enough, for not..." She stopped, horrified at what she'd just said. Jonathan looked like she'd slapped him. "You think I didn't look? You think I didn't tear this city apart trying to find you? I know you did. Logically, I know that. But there's this part of me that's just... It's so angry and I hate myself for it because none of this is your fault. You're the victim too. But I can't help feeling like if you just looked a little harder, tried a little longer, maybe I wouldn't have spent 20 years living a lie." The silence that followed was devastating. Jonathan's hands were shaking. "I offered $2 million for information leading to your recovery. I hired every private investigator in the country. I followed up on every tip, every sighting, every piece of evidence, no matter how thin. I didn't sleep for the first 2 years. I barely ate. I worked myself into the hospital twice from exhaustion. And when your mother died, when Evelyn died because the grief was too much, I kept going. I kept searching because I couldn't let you be gone. I couldn't accept that you were just gone." Madison felt tears streaming down her face. I know all of that. But it doesn't change the fact that I was there. I was right here in Chicago, riding buses, going to school, living a life that wasn't mine, and you never found me. Because Martha hid you," Jonathan said, his voice breaking. "Because Lorraine covered her tracks. Because they made it impossible. But you're right. I failed you. I failed to protect you. I failed to bring you home. I failed to save your mother. I failed at everything that mattered. That's not what I meant, isn't it?" Jonathan stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "You want me to take responsibility? Fine. It's my fault. All of it. I should have been watching closer at the park. Should have never let Lorraine near our family after she stole from us. Should have seen the signs, connected the dots, found you before Martha poisoned you against your real life. Should have kept Evelyn alive. Should have..." "Stop," Madison said. "Please stop." But Jonathan couldn't stop. 20 years of guilt and grief were pouring out of him, and Madison realized with horror that she'd broken something fundamental. She'd given voice to the fear he'd been carrying all this time. The fear that he hadn't done enough, hadn't been enough, hadn't loved his daughter enough to bring her home. "I look at you," Jonathan said, staring out at the Chicago skyline, "and I see my daughter. I see Amelia, but I also see a stranger, someone I don't know, someone who doesn't know me. And I'm trying so hard to give you space, to let you process this at your own pace. But you're right. I'm waiting. Every day, I'm waiting for the moment you'll look at me and remember. Remember being 4 years old and calling me King Daddy. Remember the tickle fights and the bedtime stories and the way you'd fall asleep on my chest while we watched cartoons? I'm waiting for my daughter to come back." He turned to face her, tears streaming down his face. "But she's not coming back, is she? She's gone. Martha took her. And what I got instead is you. And I don't know how to love you without mourning her." Madison felt like the ground had opened up beneath her. "I should go." "Where?" Jonathan asked, his voice hollow. "Where will you go?" "I don't know. A hotel, my old apartment, anywhere but here." "Madison, please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean..." "Yes, you did," Madison said quietly. "And that's okay, because I feel the same way. I look at you and I see a stranger who's supposed to be my father. I see someone who wants something from me that I can't give. And I'm trying. God, I'm trying so hard. But I don't know how to be your daughter when I don't remember ever being her." She grabbed her bag, the same ratty backpack she'd had on the bus that night. With Señor Osito still tucked in the side pocket, Jonathan watched her, making no move to stop her. "I need time," Madison said. "I need to figure out who I am without everyone watching, waiting, expecting. I can't breathe here. How much time? I don't know. Jonathan nodded, defeated. Will you at least let me know you're safe? Check in, even if it's just a text. Yeah, I can do that. She made it to the door before Jonathan spoke again. Madison, Amelia, whoever you are right now, I love you. I've loved you every single day for 24 years. That's never going to change. Madison's hand tightened on the doorknob. I wish I could say it back. I wish I could remember loving you, but I can't, and I don't know if I ever will. She left before she could see his face crumble. Madison spent the next week in a cheap motel on the outskirts of the city. She called in sick to work. Indefinitely, she ignored Jonathan's careful, respectful texts, asking if she was okay. She sat in the dingy room and stared at the water-stained ceiling and tried to figure out how to exist in a world where nothing made sense anymore. Dr. Reeves had warned her about this. The identity crisis, the rage, the feeling of being caught between two lives with no way to reconcile them. You're grieving, she'd said. Grieving the life you lost, the life you had, the person you thought you were. That's normal, but you have to be careful not to push away the people who love you in the process. Too late for that. Madison pulled out her phone and scrolled through messages. Texts from Jonathan, each one more worried than the last. Emails from Detective Chen with updates on the trial. Even a message from Elena at the hospital checking in. But the one that made her stop was from a number she didn't recognize. You don't know me, but I'm the mother of a child who was taken 8 years ago. Your father's foundation helped us find her last year. I saw your story on the news. I just wanted to say, it gets better. The confusion, the anger, the feeling of being lost. It gets better. Not easier, but better. You're not alone in this. Madison read the message 3 times, something loosening in her chest. She thought about Jonathan's foundation, the one he'd started after Amelia disappeared. How many families had he helped? How many children had he brought home? He'd taken his own tragedy and turned it into something that saved others. He'd never stopped trying, never stopped fighting, even when his own daughter was gone, even when his wife died, even when there was no hope left. He'd kept going, and she'd thrown that in his face, told him he hadn't done enough. God, what had she done? Madison picked up her phone and, with shaking hands, typed out a message. I'm at the Northside Motel on Route 41, Room 7. I'm sorry for everything. I'm so sorry. She hit send. Before she could second-guess herself, Jonathan's response came in less than a minute. I'm on my way. Madison sat on the edge of the motel bed, clutching Señor Osito, and waited for her father to come bring her home. The courtroom was packed. Madison sat in the front row, Jonathan beside her, their hands clasped together, a connection that still felt fragile but was growing stronger each day. 3 months had passed since that night at the motel. 3 months of intensive therapy, of difficult conversations, of slowly learning to navigate their relationship without the weight of impossible expectations. They'd made a deal, she and Jonathan. They would stop trying to force her to remember, stop waiting for Amelia to magically reappear. Instead, they would build something new, a relationship between who she was now and who he was now, father and daughter. Yes, but also 2 people learning each other from scratch. It was working, slowly, painfully, but it was working. Now they were here, in federal court, watching Lorraine Ashford face justice. Lorraine sat at the defense table in a neat pantsuit, her lawyer beside her. She'd aged in the months since her arrest. The arrogance had faded, replaced by something harder, more desperate. But when her eyes found Madison, there was still that flash of defiance, that refusal to accept responsibility. All rise, the bailiff called. The Honorable Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. The judge entered, a black woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and an air of authority that commanded instant respect. She settled into her seat and surveyed the courtroom. We're here today for the sentencing of Lorraine Marie Ashford, Judge Morrison began. Ms. Ashford has been found guilty by a jury of her peers on charges of conspiracy to commit kidnapping, child endangerment, and obstruction of justice. Before I hand down my sentence, I understand we have several victim impact statements to hear. Madison's stomach clenched. She was first, Doctor. Reeves had helped her prepare the statement, had worked with her through draft after draft until the words felt right. But now, Walking to the podium, Madison felt like she might throw up. She looked at Jonathan. He gave her an encouraging nod. Madison set her papers on the podium and looked up at Lorraine. "My name is Madison Crowell," she began, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. Or it was, "Now I'm legally Amelia Halloway again, though I don't remember ever being her. That's what you took from me. Not just my name or my family, but my entire identity, my past, my memories, myself." Lorraine's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. "I'm 24 years old," Madison continued. "I should have memories of my childhood. Birthday parties, holidays, learning to ride a bike, first day of school, but I don't. I have fragments, pieces of a life that wasn't mine. Because you decided that your hurt feelings, your jealousy, your petty revenge was worth more than a 4-year-old's life." Her voice was getting stronger now. The words flowing. "You didn't just take me. You took my father's daughter. You took my mother's child. And you killed her. As surely as if you'd put a gun to her head. Evelyn Halloway died because she couldn't live in a world where her daughter was gone. That's on you. Her death is your responsibility." "Objection," Lorraine's lawyer started, but Judge Morrison waved him off. "Ms. Ashford will have her chance to speak. Continue, Mrs. Halloway." Madison took a breath. "I've spent the last few months in therapy, trying to piece together who I am, trying to reconcile being Madison and being Amelia, trying to build a relationship with a father I don't remember. And you know what the hardest part is? It's not the missing memories. It's not even the trauma of knowing I was kidnapped. It's the knowledge that you did this to your own family, that you were trusted, loved even, and you used that trust to destroy people." She paused, looking directly at Lorraine. "Martha Kincaid was wrong to take me, wrong to keep me, wrong to raise me in isolation and fear. But at least she kept me alive. At least she provided the basics of food and shelter. You just wanted to watch people burn. And when your plan fell apart, you ran. You abandoned everyone. Martha, me, your own sister's memory. You're a coward and a narcissist. And I hope you spend every day in prison thinking about what you destroyed." Madison stepped back from the podium, her legs shaky. Jonathan was there immediately, steadying her, guiding her back to their seat. "Thank you, Mrs. Halloway," Judge Morrison said. "Mr. Halloway, I believe you also have a statement." Jonathan stood, and Madison saw his hands were trembling too. He walked to the podium and gripped its edges like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "Your Honor," he began, "Lorraine Ashford didn't just kidnap my daughter. She orchestrated the complete destruction of my family. She planned it, funded it, and executed it with cold calculation. And when her plan went wrong, she ran to Florida and lived off stolen money while I spent 20 years searching for a child I thought was dead." His voice cracked, but he pushed through. "My wife, Evelyn, was Lorraine's sister. They grew up together, shared a childhood, a family, and Lorraine hated her for it. Hated her success, her happiness, her life, so she took everything from her. And when Evelyn died, when the grief literally killed her, Lorraine didn't feel remorse. She didn't turn herself in. She didn't try to make it right. She just kept living her life, like my family's destruction was a minor inconvenience." Jonathan looked at Lorraine, and Madison saw something dangerous in his eyes. "I want you to understand something. You didn't win. You thought you'd broken us beyond repair, but you failed. My daughter is alive. She's here, and we're rebuilding. You took 20 years, but you don't get to take the rest. You don't get that power anymore." He returned to his seat, and Madison squeezed his hand. Judge Morrison made notes, then looked up. "Does the defendant wish to make a statement before sentencing?" Lorraine's lawyer leaned in, whispering urgently, but Lorraine waved him off. She stood, and for the first time since Madison had met her, she looked almost human, tired, defeated. "I'm not going to apologize," Lorraine said, and Madison's jaw clenched. "Not because I don't think I should, but because words don't mean anything at this point. What I did was unforgivable. I know that. I've known it for 20 years. She paused, seeming to gather herself. "Evelyn was my sister, my little sister, and I hated her, not because she did anything wrong, but because everything came so easy to her. She was smarter, prettier, more talented. She got the guy, the career, the perfect life, and I got nothing. So I took something from her. I took the thing she loved most. Lorraine's voice was flat, emotionless. I told myself I was justified, that I was owed something for years of being overlooked, undervalued. But the truth is, I was just bitter and cruel. And when Martha called me, panicking about the media coverage, I realized I couldn't go through with the ransom. I'd either get caught or have to give Amelia back. Both options meant I'd lose. So I cut my losses and ran. She looked at Madison. I didn't think about what that meant for you. I didn't think about Martha being stuck with a child she didn't want. I didn't think about Jonathan searching for decades. I didn't think about Evelyn dying. I just ran, because that's what I do. Run from consequences, from responsibility, from anything that requires me to face what I've done. Judge Morrison's expression was unreadable. Is that all? No. Lorraine turned back to Madison and Jonathan. You're right. I'm a coward. I'm selfish. I destroyed your family because I couldn't stand my own failures. And I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know, seeing you here, seeing that you survived, that you found each other, it's the first time in 20 years I've felt anything other than emptiness. Even if it's just shame. She sat down, and the courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison let the silence stretch, then spoke. Miss Ashford, I've presided over many cases in my career. Murders, assaults, terrible crimes committed by desperate or damaged people. But what you did, this was different. This was calculated cruelty. You didn't kidnap Amelia Holloway in a moment of passion or desperation. You planned it. You hired someone. You orchestrated the destruction of a family because you were jealous of your own sister. The judge's voice hardened. You're right that apologies mean nothing. Words are empty when the damage is this profound. But I want to make something clear. You will face the full consequences of your actions. You will spend the rest of your life thinking about what you've done. And maybe, eventually, you'll understand the true weight of your crimes. Judge Morrison looked at her notes, then back at Lorraine. On the charge of conspiracy to commit kidnapping, I sentence you to 25 years in federal prison. On the charge of child endangerment, I sentence you to 15 years to run consecutively. On the charge of obstruction of justice, I sentence you to 5 years, also consecutive. That's a total of 45 years, Miss Ashford. You'll be 99 years old before you're eligible for parole. The courtroom erupted. Lorraine's lawyer was objecting. Journalists were taking notes. People were crying. But Madison just sat there feeling nothing. No relief, no satisfaction, just emptiness. Additionally, Judge Morrison continued over the noise. You are ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $5 million to the Holloway family. To be taken from any and all assets you possess. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down with finality. Officers moved to take Lorraine away as they led her past Madison's row. She stopped. I really am sorry, she said quietly. I know it doesn't matter, but I am. Madison looked at her. This woman who'd destroyed so many lives, who'd killed her mother, who'd stolen her childhood. You're right, Madison said. It doesn't matter. Lorraine nodded and let herself be led away, outside the courthouse. Reporters swarmed. Detective Chen ran interference while Jonathan and Madison made their way to his car. Questions flew at them from all directions. How does it feel to get justice? Will you pursue a civil case against Martha Kincaid? Do you have any memories of being Amelia? What's next for the Holloway family? They didn't answer. Just kept walking until they were in the car. Doors locked, the chaos muffled by bulletproof glass. Jonathan didn't start the engine right away. How are you feeling? Madison considered the question. I don't know. I thought I'd feel vindicated or relieved or something. But I just feel tired. Yeah, me too. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Madison said, She'll die in prison. Yes. Good. Jonathan looked at her, surprised by the venom in her voice. Madison met his eyes. I know I'm supposed to be above revenge. Supposed to forgive and move on, but I can't. She killed my mother. She stole my life. She broke you. So yeah, I'm glad she'll die in prison. I'm glad she'll never see another beach sunset or taste decent food or feel anything other than regret and concrete and bars. That doesn't make you a bad person. Jonathan said gently. Doesn't it? No, it makes you human. You're allowed to be angry, Amelia. You're allowed to want justice, even if it looks like revenge. Madison leaned back against the seat, exhausted. Martha's trial is next month. I know. I don't know if I can do this again. Another trial, another statement. More lawyers and judges and reporters. You don't have to, Jonathan said. Martha's already pleading guilty. She's cooperating fully. The DA says she'll probably get 18 to 20 years, considering her age and cooperation. You don't have to testify if you don't want to. Madison thought about that. Martha, who'd raised her. Martha, who'd kept her isolated and afraid. Martha, who'd never loved her but had kept her alive. I want to see her, Madison said suddenly. Before the sentencing, I want to talk to her. Are you sure? No, but I need to. I need closure with her too, with both of them. Jonathan nodded slowly. Okay, I'll set it up. He started the car, and they pulled away from the courthouse, leaving the reporters and cameras behind. As they drove through Chicago, Madison looked out at the city, the place where she'd been born, taken, and eventually found, the place that held her past, her present, and maybe her future. Jonathan, yeah, thank you for not giving up, for finding me, for loving me even when I didn't know how to love you back. Jonathan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Always, sweetheart. Always. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, Madison felt something shift inside her. Not a memory. She still didn't remember being 4-year-old Amelia, but something else. Something that felt almost like home. 2 years later, Madison, Amelia. She was learning to answer to both now. Stood in front of the Amelia Halloway Foundation's new office building. 20 stories of glass and steel in downtown Chicago. Built with Lorraine's restitution money and Jonathan's matching funds. A monument to survival, to hope, to second chances. Ready? Jonathan asked beside her. He looked different these days. Lighter somehow. The grief that had carved lines into his face for 20 years had softened. He smiled more, laughed more, lived more. Ready? Amelia confirmed. They walked inside together, through the gleaming lobby where a bronze plaque read, "In memory of Evelyn Halloway, architect of dreams and devoted mother, may her legacy bring other children home." Amelia touched the plaque as she passed, a ritual she'd adopted. She still didn't remember Evelyn. The memories remained stubbornly locked away, but she'd learned about her, through photos, videos, stories from people who'd known her. She'd visited the buildings Evelyn had designed, traced her mother's vision in steel and stone and glass, and slowly, she'd built a relationship with the ghost of the woman who'd loved her first. The elevator took them to the 10th floor, the foundation's headquarters. The doors opened to reveal a bustling office, case managers on phones, investigators at computers, volunteers sorting through missing persons reports. At the center of it all was Amelia's desk. She'd started working here 6 months ago, after completing a specialized training program in trauma-informed care for recovered missing children. It had been Jonathan's idea. Gentle, tentative, asking if she might want to use her nursing skills and her own experience to help other families. She'd said yes before he'd finished the question. "Morning, boss," called Marcus, one of the senior investigators. He was ex-FBI, gruff but kind, and he'd been instrumental in helping Amelia understand the technical aspects of missing children cases. "Morning," Amelia called back, settling at her desk. The workspace was personal now. Photos of her and Jonathan at the foundation's ribbon cutting. A framed copy of her nursing license, reissued under her legal name, Amelia Halloway. And in the place of honor, Señor Osito, the bear that had started everything, now retired from his backpack and given a place of respect. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dr. "Reeves, don't forget our session at 4. We're talking about the park visit." Amelia's stomach tightened. The park, Lincoln Park, where she'd been taken. She'd been working up to visiting it for months. And today was finally the day. Dr. Reeves had been preparing her, making sure she was ready to confront that space without triggering a complete breakdown. "You okay?" Jonathan appeared at her cubicle, 2 coffee cups in hand. He set one down for her. Hazelnut latte, her favorite. He'd learned all her preferences over the past 2 years, storing away each detail like it was precious. and maybe it was. Maybe learning your adult daughter's coffee order was just as important as remembering her 4-year-old self's favorite bedtime story. Just thinking about this afternoon, Amelia admitted. The park visit? You sure you want to do this? I need to, Doctor, Reeves says. Confronting the trauma site can be a crucial step in integration, and I've been stuck for months. I need to move forward. Jonathan nodded, understanding. Their relationship had evolved into something neither of them expected. Not quite the father-daughter bond that had been lost, but something new and equally valid. They were family by choice now, not just by blood, building something together rather than trying to resurrect the past. Well, I'm here if you need me, Jonathan said. The whole day. Cancel all my meetings if necessary. You have a board presentation at 2. Screw the board. You're more important. Amelia smiled. A real smile, the kind that came easier these days. I'll be fine, but thank you. A commotion at the front desk caught their attention. A woman in her 30s was crying, clutching a photo. One of the intake coordinators was trying to calm her down, but the woman was inconsolable. Amelia was moving before she consciously decided to. She reached the woman and gently touched her arm. Hey, I'm Amelia. What's your name? The woman looked up, eyes red and swollen. Rebecca Torres. My son. My son is missing. 3 days now. The police say he probably ran away, but he wouldn't. He's only 15, and he wouldn't just leave. But they're not doing anything. They're just waiting. And I can't. Okay, Rebecca. Breathe with me. Amelia guided the woman to a chair, sat beside her, held her hand. We're going to help you. That's what we do here. We find children who've been taken, children who've run away, children who are lost, and we bring them home. So I need you to tell me everything about your son. His name. When you last saw him, what he was wearing. Can you do that? Rebecca nodded, gulping air, trying to compose herself. And as she began to speak, as Amelia took notes and asked questions and assembled the pieces of another family's nightmare, she felt something click into place inside her. This was why she was here. This was her purpose. Not to recover memories that might never come back, but to use her experience. All of it, Madison's and Amelia's, to help others. By the time she'd gotten Rebecca settled with an investigator and a case manager, it was nearly noon. Jonathan was watching from his office doorway, and when their eyes met, she saw pride there. Love. Acceptance. You're good at this, he said when she approached. I should be. I'm the poster child for found after 20 years. Who better to help other families than someone who's lived it? Your mother would be proud, Jonathan said softly. The way you took your trauma and turned it into something that helps people, that's exactly the kind of person she was. Exactly the kind of person she'd want you to be. Amelia felt the familiar pang. Grief for a mother she couldn't remember but wished she could. I wish I could have known her. Really known her. I know, but Amelia, she lives on in you, in the work you're doing, the people you're helping. That's her legacy, and yours. At 4 o'clock, Amelia met Dr. Reeves in the foundation's lobby. The therapist looked at her carefully, assessing. You look nervous. Terrified is more accurate, Amelia admitted. That's okay. Fear is appropriate here. The question is whether you feel ready to confront it. Amelia thought about Rebecca Torres, about the desperation in her eyes, the absolute certainty that her son was out there somewhere, waiting to be found. She thought about all the families the foundation had helped over the past 2 years. 37 children recovered, 37 families reunited. She thought about Martha Kincaid in prison, about Lorraine Ashford in a different prison, about the 20 years she'd lost. I'm ready, she said. They took a car to Lincoln Park. Jonathan had offered to come, but Amelia had declined. This was something she needed to do without him, without his expectations or hopes clouding the experience. The park was beautiful in late spring. Trees in full bloom, families picnicking on the grass, children playing on the very swings where everything had ended 22 years ago. It looked so normal, so innocent. Dr. Reeves guided her slowly through the space. Tell me what you're feeling. I don't know. I thought I'd remember something. Thought being here would trigger some kind of breakthrough. Amelia walked toward the swings, her heart pounding. But I don't remember. I don't remember being here. Being taken, it's just a park. Is that disappointing? Yes, no, I don't know. Amelia sat on one of the swings, the chains creaking under her weight. I spent so long thinking that if I could just remember, everything would make sense. I'd know who I really am. But maybe I've been chasing something that doesn't exist. Maybe Amelia, the 4-year-old who was taken, she's gone, and that's okay. I'm someone else now. And who are you? Amelia thought about it. I'm someone who was taken, someone who survived, someone who's helping others survive. I'm Jonathan's daughter, even if I don't remember being his little girl. I'm Evelyn's daughter, even though I never knew her. I'm Madison's experiences and Amelia's blood and something entirely new. I'm me, whoever that is. That sounds like integration, Dr. Reeves said gently, accepting all the parts of yourself, even the contradictory ones. Amelia pushed off gently, the swing moving back and forth. She imagined a 4-year-old here, pumping her legs, laughing, being pushed by a mother who loved her. She couldn't see it clearly, couldn't access the memory, but she could feel it, the echo of joy, of safety, of belonging. I forgive her, Amelia said suddenly. Who? Martha. I forgive her. The words felt strange but right. I'm still angry. I'm still hurt, but I forgive her. She was scared and desperate and trapped, and she made terrible choices, but she kept me alive. She could have killed me, could have abandoned me somewhere, but she didn't. She gave me food, shelter, education. It wasn't love, but it was survival. And maybe that's enough for forgiveness. Dr. Reeves nodded. Have you told her? No, but I'm going to, before her sentencing next week. They sat in the park for another hour. Amelia on the swing, Dr. Reeves on a nearby bench. The sun moved across the sky. Families came and went, and slowly, Amelia felt something release inside her. Not a memory, something better. Peace. The next week, Amelia sat across from Martha Kincaid in a prison visiting room. Martha looked older, grayer, diminished by incarceration. But when she saw Amelia, something flickered in her eyes. Relief, maybe, or fear, or both. I didn't think you'd come, Martha said, her voice hoarse. I almost didn't, Amelia admitted, but I needed to say some things before your sentencing. And I needed to hear some things from you. Martha nodded, waiting. Why did you keep me? Amelia asked. Really? You could have dropped me at a police station anonymously. Could have left me at a hospital. Why raise me for 20 years? Martha was quiet for a long time. At first, it was fear. I was terrified of getting caught, of going to prison. So I hid, changed your name, moved constantly, kept you isolated. But then, I don't know, time passed. You grew up, and somewhere along the way, you stopped being evidence of my crime and started being someone I was responsible for, not my daughter. I never let myself think that, but someone I couldn't just abandon. Did you ever love me? The question hung in the air. Martha's eyes filled with tears. I don't know. I don't know if I'm capable of love. Not the way other people are, but I cared. In my way, I wanted you to be okay. Wanted you to have a future, even if it was built on lies. Amelia nodded. I forgive you. Martha's head snapped up. What? I forgive you for taking me, for raising me in fear, for stealing my identity. I forgive you because holding on to anger is killing me, and I need to let it go. But Martha, Amelia leaned forward. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean what you did was okay, and it doesn't mean I'll ever see you again after today. It just means I'm choosing to move forward without carrying you with me. Martha was crying openly now. Thank you. I don't deserve it, but thank you. You're right. You don't deserve it, but I need it, so I'm giving it anyway. Amelia stood to leave. At the door, she paused. Martha, that woman you worked for, Lorraine, she's going to die in prison, and you'll probably spend the rest of your useful years locked up too. I hope it was worth it. I hope whatever she promised you was worth destroying so many lives. It wasn't, Martha said quietly. It never was. Amelia left without looking back. That evening, Amelia and Jonathan had dinner at his penthouse. Their home now, truly. She'd moved in permanently 6 months ago, accepting that this was where she belonged. How did it go? Jonathan asked over pasta. With Martha. I forgave her. Jonathan's fork paused halfway to his mouth. You what? I forgave her. Not for her sake. For mine. I needed to let go of the anger. It was eating me alive. Jonathan set down his fork. I don't know if I can do that. Forgive either of them. You don't have to. Your journey is different from mine. But Dad, the words still felt new. But it was getting easier. Don't let them have any more of your life. You've given them 20 years. Don't give them another day. Jonathan's eyes were shining. When did you get so wise? I learned from the best, Amelia said with a small smile. They finished dinner in comfortable silence. And later, as Amelia got ready for bed in the room that was finally, truly hers, she looked at herself in the mirror. She saw Madison Crowell, the nurse, the survivor, the woman who'd lived 20 years under a lie. She saw Amelia Holloway, the stolen child, the daughter who came home, the legacy of Evelyn's love. But mostly, she just saw herself, whole, integrated, ready for whatever came next. The morning was perfect. One of those rare Chicago spring days when the air smells like hope and new beginnings. Amelia stood at the entrance to Lincoln Park, Jonathan beside her, both of them dressed in casual clothes, carrying a small rose bush wrapped in burlap. Today was the anniversary. 22 years since a 4-year-old girl had vanished from this park. 22 years since Jonathan and Evelyn's world had shattered. 22 years since everything changed. But today wasn't about mourning anymore. Today was about reclamation. You sure about this? Jonathan asked, studying her face. Amelia nodded. I'm sure, it's time. They walked together through the park, past the fountain where children splashed and laughed, past the benches where elderly couples fed pigeons, past the ice cream vendor where Jonathan had been standing when his life fell apart. They reached the swing set, and Amelia felt that familiar tightness in her chest. But it wasn't fear anymore. It was acknowledgement. This place had stolen her childhood, but it wouldn't own her anymore. Here, Jonathan said, stopping at a spot near the swings. This is where your mother planted a tree. After, when we still had hope you'd come home and see it. Amelia looked at the oak tree, tall and strong now, its branches spreading wide, offering shade and shelter. A small plaque at its base read, For Amelia, may you find your way home. She came here every week. Jonathan continued, his voice thick. Rain or shine, she'd sit under this tree and talk to you. Tell you about her day, about the new building she was designing, about how much she missed you. She never gave up hope, not until... He didn't finish. Didn't need to. Amelia knelt beside the tree and began to dig, making space for the rose bush. Jonathan joined her, and together they worked in silence, their hands moving earth, creating space for new growth. When the hole was deep enough, Amelia carefully unwrapped the rose bush, a variety called Evelyn, with delicate white blooms that smelled like heaven. She'd spent weeks finding the perfect cultivar, wanting something that would honor the mother she'd never known but carried in her heart. She would have loved this, Jonathan said, his voice breaking. She always wanted a garden. Said when you were older, you'd plant one together. Amelia settled the rose bush into the earth, and they covered the roots with soil, patting it down gently. She poured water from the bottle they'd brought, watching it seep into the ground, nourishing the plant that would grow here. A living memorial to a woman who'd died too young, who'd loved too deeply, who'd never stopped believing her daughter would come home. I wish I remembered her, Amelia said softly. I wish I could remember her face, her voice, the way she smelled, the way she laughed. I wish I could remember being her daughter. You are her daughter, Jonathan said. Jonathan, memory or not, blood or not, you're hers. You have her strength, her compassion, her ability to take something broken and make it beautiful. That's not about remembering. That's about who you are in your bones. Amelia stood, brushing dirt from her knees. Around them, the park buzzed with life. Children playing, families picnicking, couples walking hand in hand. Normal life, the kind of life she'd been denied but was reclaiming now, one day at a time. I have something to tell you, she said suddenly, Something I've been working on. Jonathan looked at her, curious and slightly concerned. Okay, I'm writing a book. About everything. About being taken. About growing up as Madison. About being found. About the journey to integration. Doctor, Reeves thinks it could help other families. Other victims, give them a roadmap for healing. Jonathan's face transformed, surprise giving way to pride. Amelia? That's incredible. When did you start? 6 months ago, I didn't tell you because I wasn't sure I could finish it. Wasn't sure I could face putting it all on paper. But I'm almost done now, and I want to dedicate it to Mom, to Evelyn. So her story doesn't end with grief. So people know she was more than just the mother who lost her child. She was an architect, a wife, a woman who built beautiful things and loved fiercely. She deserves to be remembered for all of that. Jonathan pulled her into a hug, and Amelia held on tight. This man who'd never stopped searching, who'd turned his tragedy into a foundation that had saved dozens of children, who'd learned to love the daughter who came back to him. Even when she couldn't love him back the way he wanted. She'd be so proud of you, Jonathan whispered. We both are. When they pulled apart, Amelia saw Detective Chen approaching, along with several other people. Foundation staff, volunteers, families they'd helped over the past 2 years. Marcus was there with his wife, Dr. Reeves, Elena from the hospital, even Rebecca Torres, the mother whose son they'd found 3 months ago, bringing him home safely after a kidnapping that could have ended in tragedy. What's going on? Amelia asked. Jonathan smiled. You didn't think I'd let this day pass without acknowledging it, did you? Without celebrating not just what was lost, but what was found. Detective Chen stepped forward, carrying a wooden box. Amelia, 2 years ago you came back from the impossible. You survived something no child should endure, and instead of letting it destroy you, you turned it into purpose. The foundation has helped 37 families because of you. 37 children are home because you refused to let your story end in darkness. She opened the box, revealing a plaque. The Chicago Police Department, in conjunction with the Amelia Halloway Foundation, would like to dedicate this memorial bench to you and your mother, so that anyone who sits here, any parent who's lost a child, any child who's lost themselves, knows that hope is real, that coming home is possible. Amelia looked at the bench being carried toward them by 2 officers. It was simple but beautiful, with a bronze plaque that read, "In memory of Evelyn Halloway, and in honor of Amelia Halloway, lost but never forgotten, taken but brought home. May this space remind us that love never gives up, and that even after the darkest night, dawn still comes." Tears streamed down Amelia's face as they positioned the bench under Evelyn's tree, next to the newly planted rose bush. It faced the swings, the last place 4-year-old Amelia had been happy and free, the place where everything had been stolen, but now it would also be the place where healing happened. Thank you, Amelia managed. Thank you, all of you. Rebecca Torres stepped forward, her 15-year-old son beside her. You saved us, she said simply. When the police had given up, when everyone said Daniel had just run away, you believed me. You found him. You brought my son home. We're just one family, but there are dozens of us, and we wanted to be here today to say thank you, to say you matter, to say your story, all of it, the pain and the healing. It matters. One by one, the families came forward, parents who'd lost children and found them again, siblings reunited, grandparents given second chances, each one with a story of hope born from Amelia's nightmare. Amelia looked at Jonathan. Overwhelmed, he squeezed her hand. This is your legacy. This is what you've built from the ashes. As the crowd dispersed, leaving just Amelia and Jonathan, they sat on the new bench. The late afternoon sun filtered through Evelyn's oak tree, dappling them with light and shadow. The rose bush swayed gently in the breeze. I need to tell you something too, Jonathan said. I'm stepping back from the foundation, not leaving entirely, but handing over day-to-day operations to you and Marcus. I want to spend more time living, less time working, maybe travel, maybe date. He laughed softly. Maybe figure out who Jonathan Halloway is when he's not defined by loss. Amelia smiled. I think that's wonderful. You deserve that. You've spent 22 years searching and grieving. It's time to live. What about you? What's next for Amelia Halloway? She thought about it. I finished the book. Keep working at the foundation. Maybe go back to nursing part-time. I miss patient care. Maybe date 2 when I'm ready." She paused. "Maybe visit Martha one more time. See if there's anything else I need to say or hear. Maybe let myself be happy without feeling guilty about it." "That sounds like a good plan." They sat in comfortable silence, watching children play on the swings where 22 years ago, everything had ended and begun. Amelia thought about the journey, from 4-year-old Amelia to Madison Crowell, to the woman she was now. All the pain, all the healing, all the piecing together of a life that had been shattered. "Dad?" The word came easier every time. "Yeah. Do you think Mom would forgive me? For not remembering her?" Jonathan turned to her, his eyes wet. "Sweetheart, there's nothing to forgive. She loved you. That love doesn't require reciprocal memory. It just is. And wherever she is, I promise you, she's just grateful you're alive, that you're here, that you're healing." "I love you," Amelia said. The words felt monumental, like a gift she'd been holding on to, waiting for the right moment. "I don't remember loving you when I was 4, but I love you now. The you who never gave up. The you who learned to love me as I am, not as I was. The you who became my father all over again." Jonathan sobbed openly, pulling her close. "I love you too, God. I love you so much." They held each other as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Around them, the park settled into evening, families heading home, lights beginning to glow, the day transforming into night. Amelia looked up at Evelyn's oak tree, strong and enduring, at the rosebush that would bloom white and fragrant, year after year, at the bench that would hold countless people seeking hope, at her father beside her, finally at peace. She thought about Señor Osito, sitting in her office at the foundation, a symbol of everything she'd lost and everything she'd found. She thought about the 37 families reunited, the book she was writing, the life she was building from fragments and determination. This park had taken everything from her once, but today, she was taking it back, reclaiming this space, filling it with love and memory and hope. "Ready to go home?" Jonathan asked eventually. Amelia stood, taking one last look at the memorial, at the swings that had witnessed the worst day of her family's life, at the tree that had grown in grief and now stood in triumph, at the rosebush that would bloom in honor of a woman who'd loved her daughter with every fiber of her being. "Yeah," she said, taking Jonathan's hand. "Let's go home." They walked out of Lincoln Park together, father and daughter, survivors and healers, carrying their scars but no longer defined by them. Behind them, Evelyn's oak tree rustled in the evening breeze, and the white roses waited to bloom, because even in the darkest abysses of human cruelty, even after 22 years of loss and pain and shattered identities, true love finds a way home. And sometimes, home isn't a place you remember. It's a place you build. One choice, one day, one moment of grace at a time. Amelia Halloway had come home at last, not to the home she'd lost, but to the one she'd created from the ashes. And that, in the end, was enough. The end word count, approximately 1,400 words. Epilogue note. 6 months after the dedication ceremony, Amelia's book, Finding Home, A Daughter's Journey Through Loss, Identity, and Redemption, became a national bestseller. The proceeds went entirely to the Amelia Halloway Foundation, which has since helped locate and recover over 100 missing children. Martha Kincaid was sentenced to 18 years in prison. She serves her time quietly, participating in rehabilitation programs and corresponding occasionally with Amelia. Letters that are cordial but distant, an acknowledgement of shared history without the weight of forced connection. Lorraine Ashford remains in federal prison, serving her 45-year sentence. She has never expressed genuine remorse, but she has stopped protesting her conviction. Jonathan Halloway remarried 3 years after the dedication, a kind woman named Sarah who'd lost her own child years before and understood grief's complicated geography. They travel frequently and volunteer with the foundation. When home, Amelia continues her work with the foundation while maintaining a part-time nursing practice. She never fully recovered her memories of being 4-year-old Amelia, but she stopped needing them. She knows who she is now: a survivor, a healer, a daughter, a beacon of hope for families navigating unimaginable darkness. And every year on the anniversary, she returns to Lincoln Park, sits on the memorial bench under her mother's oak tree, and watches Evelyn's roses bloom white and fragrant, proof that even from tragedy, beautiful things can grow.